welcome you to this meeting of the Waverley Local Planning Panel, 25th of May 2022, and start by introducing the members of today's panel. My name is Paul Steen, I'm the chair. The expert members are Ms. Jan Morell and Ms. Sharon Beale, and the community member is Ms. Alison Small. I'll ask the members of the panel to disclose any conflicts of interest they have in relation to each of the items on the agenda. Are there any conflicts to be noted? I have none.
No conflicts from me.
No conflicts from me.
And none from me, Paul.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Well, we'll start straight in on the agenda to the first matter, which is 179 Military Road, Dover Heights. And I think Lee Cosnetta is the first speaker.
Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you.
Just for the record, Lee, you're the planner representing the applicant.
That's correct. Thank you.
And I think you have Alex Smith with you if we want to ask the architect any questions.
Yes, that's correct.
Right, please go ahead.
Thank you, panelists, and thank you to the council officers for their support of this application. We agree with the recommendations and accept all of the conditions of consent as per your papers. As discussed in the report, the proposal was amended to address prior concerns about an expansion of the embellishments on the rooftop. And the plans now propose only a slight expansion of the stair hood. The purpose of this is to facilitate moving the existing spiral stairs out of the upstairs study, which has become an increasingly important work from home space for the owners. Given the recommendation and noting the proposal didn't attract any objections, I don't intend on taking much of the panel's time, other to reaffirm from the report that the council accepts the clause 4.6 variation requested for the height exceedance is well founded, agree that the privacy impacts have been considered in the design and eliminated via screening devices and window placement, conclude that there's no view loss, and confirm that the solar access has been preserved to the neighbouring properties. We're both available for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. The main issue about the clause 4.6 is the pre-existing deck or roof terrace, and we've just been provided with some material from the planners that deals with that issue and also includes submissions from you, but there may be some questions on it from the members of the panel. One concern we did have was the size of the roof terrace and its visibility from the street. It is, I think, something like, is it 87 square metres or something like that? Quite large.
That's correct.
And we thought that we should ask you whether or not you would be agreeable to pull it back, both in terms of its visibility from the street and the size of the terrace itself.
The proposal reduces the area already from around 88 to 78, which is still obviously quite larger than the controls would anticipate. The deck itself isn't visible from the street. It sits behind the parapet. Only people on the terrace, when it's infrequently used, could be viewed from the street. As it's an existing asset for the house, I don't think there's any motivation for the owners to reduce the area unnecessarily. It's an existing terrace. They don't intend on changing the way that they use the terrace. With the reduction they're already proposing, it hasn't been contemplated to reduce it any further.
Okay. Is there any questions from the members of the panel to Mr.
I just to have a question in terms of, you say the existing use, but from the photographs, it seems that it doesn't have a terrace floor as such.
So photos have been provided to council of the underside of the tin on the roof. So it has an original timber floor That's been exposed in some of the recent downpours from underneath. The ceilings have been removed to expose that. There's a metal clip block roof sitting on top of the timber at the moment, which was put there by the previous owners. The adult owners have used the terrace for passive enjoyment and to look at the view of the harbour bridge at certain times, but they don't allow their children up there because the balustrade is the old form balustrade, so it sits sort of below a 3-foot mark under the old arrangements in the 1930s. So it's not used by the children. The proposal is to make the balustrade safe so that everyone can use it, but there's no change to the way in which that space is used.
Excepting when these owners bought it, it wasn't a terrace floor as such. It was what we see there in the photographs. There's no railing, which would suggest that it complies with anything. So it's the existing situation was one that, in fact, was non-compliant in any event in terms of railings. So I'm just having a bit of difficulty understanding why you would need a terrace the size when you know that the policy is for much smaller terraces and the precedential effect this has, even in terms of being able to see people visibly standing on the terrace. The idea is to set it back from both the side boundaries and the front boundary, so that, you know, we don't have a predominance of, as you know, understand, rooftop terraces in a neighbourhood can become an issue, and especially at the sizes proposed.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few things I just wanted to pick up on. In terms of it being an existing situation and the non-compliance of the balustrade, the parapet is the balustrade at the moment. So the parapet's marginally shy of the BCA. And when you remove the clip block roof, which could be done under exempt development, it would be a fully approved roof terrace originally built, but with a slightly reduced balustrade height, which is being retrofitted.
So you're saying that this house had a timber roof, which served the purposes of a terrace as well as the roof. I can't believe a house would have a timber roof.
Absolutely.
Penetration.
Absolutely, and council scrutinised that quite heavily. And for that reason, the builder went to the site after a downpour and removed the internal ceilings and did an investigation of that structure. What it found was there's a Oregon floor sealed with a rubber composite topping that was the roof, and that rubber composite topping drained to the edges into a box gutter arrangement around the outside of the deck. So there's been some detailed investigations. It's certainly an existing roof. The timbers appear original, and the roof framing appears original. That's probably why it leaked, because it was essentially too flat. I do want to just comment on precedent though as well. In most of Dover Heights, these terraces are set in, and they're more like 15 or 20 square metres. They often have planters around the edges. In this particular locality, even from this terrace, you can see 5 or 6 full width all the way to the margin roof terraces across the road, well in excess of the 15 square metres, and with metal or glass balustrades to the edge of the building. So I don't think that this is going to set a precedent in the immediate locality, nor do I think that accepting this as an existing terrace being reused would set a precedent for anyone else trying to get a significantly larger terrace on a brand new build. So I don't think that there's a precedental issue here either.
So are you saying that your client would not be prepared to set it back so it's not visible from the street, and to set it back from the side boundaries to ensure that there are no privacy overlooking concerns?
I haven't got instructions on that, but I would suggest that given that they could today just remove that clip block roof and stand there, they would be reluctant to lose some of that space, yes.
And they would rather have the terrace than the office that's now proposed on the roof, is that right?
I don't have instructions on that, and I don't think that those two things necessarily counterbalance each other in terms of impact. The office has been demonstrated in the report not to have a material impact on streetscape, solar access views, or any other impact externally, and the terrace is being reduced in size. So I don't pair those two requests together as a what would you prefer. I think both of them are acceptable on their own merits.
Well, I suppose the thing is they're part of the one DA, and the idea is to get access to the roof terrace and to provide for an office, which I don't have a difficulty with, but I do have a difficulty with the size of a 78 square metre terrace, given council's policy.
I understand that.
Are there any further questions from any other member of the panel to Mr. Cosnetta?
No, I don't.
No, not from me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cosnetta. Now,
Thank
does the panel wish to hear from Alex Smith, the architect?
Well, we could ask his opinion about, he might have asked the clients about reducing the size of the terrace.
All right, is Alex Smith present, please?
Yep. Hi. No, I haven't had that conversation with the clients, but I'm. If you look at on some of the drawings, I don't think the actual balustrade that will be compliant under this new design is visible from the streets either, because of the existing parapet that's there. So, as Lee said, you can't see the roof terrace at all, but if someone was standing right on the edge, yes, you'd see a person standing there. That's true. But the actual roof terrace and certainly the stairwell and office isn't visible.
Right. Are there any questions of Mr. Smith from the panel?
No, thanks.
No, I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right. So thank you to the speakers. At the conclusion of the public meeting, we will adjourn and consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item, which is apartment 2, 21 William Street, Rose Bay. And the speaker that I have is Mr. Daniel Harvey.
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, hello. And now you're the applicant owner, is that right? Yes, please go ahead with your submission.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair and panel, for allowing me to speak. Look, me and my fiance, we're first home buyers, always been in the area. Want to have a couple kids and continue to stay in the local area. The only way to do that is to effectively add an additional bedroom and bathroom onto the townhouse that we have. I do know also that there were no submissions, and I believe it went out to 165 different addresses, and obviously no one saw a problem with it. One issue the council raises is the building height and also the building bulk. Regarding the building bulk and design excellence, you know, the whole street is basically a mishmash. There's 4-story buildings, different styles. There's single-story semis, large apartment blocks, and further up the street, a panel beater and a power station. So, you know, adding another story, I don't think would impact the streetscape. It's quite jagged to begin with. Within my complex, where there's six lots, one is north facing, one is south facing, 4 are east to west facing, all have different roof heights, different floor spaces, different boundary lines. You know, some have a large courtyard, some have a smaller one. They're not uniform at all. Now, I obviously note that the proposal has a building height of 11.21 meters, and that obviously exceeds the standard by 1.71 meters, a variation of 18%, but that's only because of the basement car park, which goes underneath all the townhouses. If you were to take the height of the building from the ground level, it would be under the 9.5 meter height and would actually be compliant. So I asked that the clause 4.6 submission for height support the breach for that particular reason. And the same can be said for the wall height. Council said that the wall height is above the standard. Again, that's only because it's being taken from the bottom of the basement car park. Now, you can't see that basement car park from the street. It's, you know, totally underground. Regarding the floor space ratio, the amended plans have reduced that floor space ratio by 11% from the original proposal. And we've asked to obviously have a additional story built into the attic roof form as proposed, which is consistent with the area as mentioned above. There's a lot of different building blocks, different shapes, styles, and therefore the small additional amount of gross floor area proposed should be considered and deemed acceptable. It's consistent with the built form controls for the area, and I really can't see an issue with additional bulk per se.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Can I just ask you, thank you for that submission, which was quite detailed. What do you say about the overshadowing impact?
I'm just coming to that now.
Okay, well, if you can deal with that and then your time is up.
Perfect. So there is less than 15 minutes of additional overshadowing from 9 a.m. to 9:15 on the bottom half of the window of 19 William Street. So we're talking less than 15 minutes on the bottom half of the window. So in terms of preserving the environmental amenity of neighbouring properties, it's a minimal slight impact. On 23 William Street, it's mostly on the roof form. And I don't believe it's habitable space as well, where the overshadowing is actually hitting.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any questions of Mr. Harvey from the members of the panel?
I don't have any questions.
No, not from me. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Chair and panel.
That's very helpful. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will adjourn and determine this and the other applications and notify them on the council website as soon as may be possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
We move then to 169 Old Southend Road, Bondi Junction. And there are a number of speakers. I think the first one is Mr. Grossman. Is he present? Mr. Joshua Grossman?
He's not in the meeting.
Mr. Grossman?
He's not in the meeting.
Right. Michael Measels, is he present? Michael Measels? He was registered to speak. Not at the meeting?
Sorry, Chair, he's not in the meeting either.
Okay. Ted Quinton.
Hi, good morning.
Good
Chair.
morning. And you're the architect for the applicant?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Quinton. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Just to say that we had a good, robust DO process with council, and we're pleased with the outcome, that there's a supporting recommendation for approval. We also had a lot of supporting letters from neighbours, so it was a good consultation. The owner, who's on the meeting as well now, was very helpful in that regard. I was able to speak to everyone in the back lane. And I think generally the proposal, as council found, it is acceptable and I guess in keeping with these rear lane developments that have been going on over the years, especially in Barnett Lane, which you have one side from Bonacor, the houses there that back onto the lane, and from Old Southhead Road as well. So happy to take any questions, but in general, obviously, we're happy with the outcome.
Thank you, Mr. Quinton. I just got one question. The owner, Mr. Joseph Souchet, had registered to speak. Do you know whether he wants to address us?
He's here in the meeting. I see his name, so it's up to him if he wishes to address.
We'll ask him.
Yes.
Does the panel have any questions of Mr. Quinton?
No, thank you.
I don't.
Not from me.
Well, thank you, Mr. Quinton.
Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Joseph Souchet there, please.
Yes, I'm on.
Oh,
Can you hear
hello.
me?
I can't see you, but you are.
How about now? You should be.
There you
Yep.
are. And you're the owner applicant.
Yes.
So,
So thank you for your time, everyone. I just registered actually to participate in the meeting. to hear what's going on. But I believe Ted's come up with a really beautiful design, which really adds a lot to the laneway, as the council officer has seen when she's come out. To us, it means a lot because both my wife and I work from home, and we've got 5 children. So the idea is to design slightly separate space away from the kids to be able to get our work done. And yes, we have very good relationships with all the neighbors in the area and have been in touch with every single one of them from the initial outset. And hence all those positive notes from all the neighbors.
Well, thank you. Are there any questions from the members of the panel to Mr. Souchet?
Yeah, thank you.
I don't have any questions.
No, not from me.
Well, thank you, Mr. Souchet. We appreciate your assistance. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. Thank you. We move then to item number 4, which is 107 Ramsgate Avenue, North Bondi. And I think it's Lee Cosnetta is first speaker again.
Afternoon, thank you.
And you're the planner for the applicant, for the record.
That's right.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you to the council officers for their support of this application. This application and all the various applications before it have been the subject of really detailed review by a lot of people within council. The site has a significant history beyond what is summarised in the report.
Yep.
Given the scope of the construction on the site, the building's sensitive location, it's been subject to scrutiny from safety auditors, fire safety officers, building inspectors, heritage geologists, coastal engineers, and the planners. It's notable too that the current work on the site is being monitored by the New South Wales Building Commissioner and is considered as a best practice example of remediation work for residential flat buildings. This project started 16 years ago in 2006 with a Land Environment Court approval giving consent to balconies on the beach facing facade and some internal works in 2008. A savvy unit owner ensured the consent was legitimately commenced just before it expired in 2013, and reams of documents confirming this along with legal advice have been provided to council. In 2020, the owners in the building were told that the building had become uninsurable and they had to move out. From this, work started on this DA, and to ensure the building didn't fall down, a series of applications were made to council to hold up the building and make the surrounding areas safe. That included a request from the owners that council issue an emergency order upon them on the eve of Christmas in 2020 when they moved out. The purpose of this DA is to encompass all the work required to save the building through these various pathways into a singular construction certificate and construction program on site. Remediation specialists Max Build have been contracted to complete the work and are currently working on site in accordance with the existing approvals. Not only are they specialists in this field, but their project management on the site and the other neighbouring buildings they've been involved with on Ben Buckler in the last 5 years saw this proposal attract 0 objections, nor have there been any complaints about building practices, workers, trucks blocking driveways, noise, dilapidation of neighbouring buildings. And in Ben Buckler, that's a pretty significant achievement. Pat Nicholas and the team at AM+A Architects have detailed the plans and construction program to bring everything together to a standard fitting 2022 in lieu of the hand-drawn LEC plans of 2006, and in doing so bring together 2022 fire safety, BCA and coastal engineering standards to the building. Council's Design Excellence Panel commend the design, and Council's planners accept that the clause 4.6 variations to FSR and height are well founded, with all of the proposed work being carried out within the previously existing and approved building envelope. We're extremely grateful for the highly coordinated approach that Council's taken to this site. So thank you to the planners and everyone involved for the last couple of years. We agree with the recommendation of the report and all of the conditions of consent as per your paper. The architect is available. We have a fairly extraordinary fly-through model if the panel would benefit from seeing it. Otherwise, we're available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Cosnetta. Are there any questions of Mr. Cosnetta from the panel?
No, thank you.
No, I don't have any.
None from me either.
Thank you, Mr. Cosnetta. Now, does the panel wish to ask Patrick Nicholas, the architect, any questions?
No,
Yes.
thank you.
No, I don't.
No.
No, well, thank you for making him available, Mr. Cosnetta. Well, we'll deal with this at the conclusion of the public meeting, but it's a mighty effort by everybody concerned as far as we can see. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we move on then to the next item, which is 60 O'Donnell Street, North Bondi. And the only speaker I have is to speak, registered speakers, Kay Malmray. Malmray. Is that person present? Not at the meeting. He did send a written submission in, so we have the benefit of that.
Not at the meeting.
Not at the meeting?
That's right, not at the meeting.
Thank you, Rosalina. All right, well, at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. That brings us to 140 to 142 Kahlua Street, Bondi Beach. And Mr. Cosnetta again is the speaker.
Afternoon, Chair. My last appearance, I promise.
For today.
That's right.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and Lee Cosnetta again, applicant, town planner. Thank you to the council officers for their recommendation for deferred commencement. We accept the recommendations in the report, inclusive of the deferred commencement matters requiring the replacement of the top floor units at the rear of the building with a single smaller unit, and all of the other conditions of consent in Schedule B. The proposal will introduce a high quality shop top housing development to Kahlua Street. It will be the first in this small local centre to develop in accordance with the local village centre controls. It brings a variety of commercial tenancy options at ground floor level above a fairly conservative basement arrangement that allows for substantial landscaping and a contribution of vegetation at the rear of the site. The units above have high levels of amenity and offer a variety of 2 and 3 bedroom configurations. The report acknowledges that the clause 4.6 variation to the height standard is well founded as it relates to a minor discretion to allow for plant and a clerestory window that have no external impacts. The report does not endorse the proposed floor space exceedance nor the offer to enter into a voluntary planning agreement. The applicant accepts this, and the proposal will be modified as required by the deferred commencement conditions to council's satisfaction. Following that, the proposal will overwhelmingly comply. We request the panel accepts the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Cosnetta. Are there any questions of Mr. Cosnetta from the panel?
No, thank you.
No, I don't.
Now, the architect Rafi Asseline is available if the panel wish to ask any questions.
Mr. Asseline's the owner of the property, and in particular, if there was any commentary on the voluntary planning agreement, I thought it was necessary for him to be here, but otherwise there's probably no need.
Well, do we want to hear from the owner is the question I have for the panel.
I don't need to. I'm happy, thank you.
Okay. Anybody have a comment?
Yeah, I'm happy.
All right. We won't call on Mr. Asseline then. Well, thank you, Mr. Cosnetta. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we'll adjourn and consider this application as well as the others before us and notify our decision on the council website. Thank you to the speakers of the meeting. Now, I have a question to ask. We have a planning proposal in relation to 34 Flood Street, Bondi. Do we want to deal with it now, or is the proponent available?
In the next session.
Hi, Paul. I think they were told it was going to be this afternoon, so they will be available
so
later.
We'll deal with it at 1 o'clock. Is that right?
I think once we've finished our deliberations.
Right. We'll deal with it when we come back at 1 o'clock. Is that okay?
Um,
I'll close the
I think
public
we've
meeting.
I think we've still got a few people on the line at the moment.
Who have we got on the line? I thought I'd called everybody.
Oh, sorry. I mean, for people to leave before we start discussions. Refi?
Yeah. I'm happy to leave if.
Yeah, the
Okay,
meeting's
thank
finished.
you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair and panel.
Thank you.
Okay, can I stop the recording?
You
Yes,
can.
please.
I'll close the public meeting now.
Thank you.
Thanks to the speakers.